Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this beautiful blue-green Sydney Sweeney-shaped globe tonight. Welcome to Real News Live. This is a Toxically Masculine Tuesday. I am your host, Mike Bara in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are short one member of the crew tonight. Steve Doran, the trail boss, is having a few issues connecting, but he should be back with us very shortly, just in time to give us his always interesting and variant opinions. All right. I don't know how the rest of you guys are doing, but I'm in Vegas. I'm drinking a little Bucco whiskey out of, what is this? The TV's Blake Wally? This is the Vince Lombardi Trophy Super Bowl 60.
Wow. Hell yeah.
I don't know, decanter, is that what you call it? I don't know what it is, but I'm drinking out of this, and I'm going to pour some in, along with a little Dr. Pepper. And Brooks, why don't you tell us how you're doing tonight? And the smartest man in America, Agnew, why don't you tell us how you're doing and tell us what you're drinking?
Doing pretty well. Had a very busy day today. Kind of pissed off at U.S. Customs for seizing a bunch of my product, but I'm mad about it. But we'll get through it. And I'm drinking ice cold water tonight.
Did you, by the way, I thought I ordered some more ivermectin from you. Did
that? Yeah, I thought I shipped it to you and it should have arrived already.
I haven't seen it, so let's check on that tomorrow. All right, the latest member, the last member to join tonight, but from nowhere, Fuckville, Arkansas, the trail boss, former chief of police, former number 2 security guy at Los Alamos National Laboratory, Army Special Forces.
Marines. Second Anglico.
Extremely masculine man who I once shot in the face. And not only did he survive, but he came back more handsome than he was before, ladies. Steve Doran, subject of an amazing 1-hour profile on the 48-hour show on CBS back when that was a legitimate news show. Steve, how you doing? How you feeling? And what are you drinking?
I'm drinking tea with milk because I'm eating bread that I just took out of the oven like minutes before the show.
Oh, that sounds quite amazing. I don't know if
I'm going to have to mute because it's so good. It has that crunch when you bite into it. You know what I'm talking about?
I can smell it from here.
You got to eat it now. Steve, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm drinking out a whiskey out of my Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl 60 Super Bowl champions decanter with the Lombardi Trophy decanter. So
how come it's not pink? It should be pink because it's so gay.
All right, and not last on the list tonight, but certainly not last in our hearts, the divergent member of the group, the one who always disagrees with us, the Cub reporter, Jimmy Olsen of the show, TV's Blake Wally, Gonzo reporter. Blake, Gonzo journalist, how you doing tonight? What are you drinking? I don't know what you're drinking, but I'm pretty sure it's not coming out of a Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl 60 Lombardi Trophy decanter. Am I right or wrong?
You would be correct. Yes, unfortunately, my Minnesota Vikings are 0-4 in the Super Bowl, so I will have to wait till I get my crystal decanter for holding whiskey someday. Hopefully, in my lifetime, the Vikings will win. I'm drinking a little Larceny whiskey here on the dance floor of the largest strip club in Nashville. Not really, but
and now I'm sorry, the owner of the most amazing strip club in Nashville, Tennessee. TV's Blake Wally, the Lickety Split. When you go there, look it up in the local phone book. It's hard to miss the Lickety Split.
Under L.
Yes,
I haven't looked. Blake is ignoring grooming standards again. I don't know what's going on here, but he's ignoring grooming standards again.
Is it the headphones throwing you off?
Yes, okay. Yes, I am. By the way, petting my kitty, but I forgot my ice pack. That's what it was. I got up to go get was my ice pack. First break, I'm going to get my ice pack.
We never take a break.
I know we don't. I know. No, it's not called the Nashville Nasties. It is the Lickety Split. So. All right, guys, let's get started with the news today, or the real news. We're going to do the real news and start talking about some interesting stuff. There's a lot of things going on that we haven't quite caught up with. Starting tonight, President Trump signed an executive order curbing mail-in ballot fraud, requiring Homeland Security to prepare a list of citizens eligible to vote in each state, require the Postal Service to only send absentee ballots to voters on the list, and mandate those ballots have envelopes and barcodes for tracking. Let's listen to the president talk about the election fraud measure that he just signed.
So with all of that, I'm very happy to be signing the voter integrity, and I think it's going to be really great. So if you don't mind, I will take some time and I'll make this signature absolutely perfect. So it looks very good. So far, so good. Okay, so that's a big deal. Very proud of it. And I don't know how it can be challenged. I'll probably challenge it. You may find a rogue judge. You get a lot of rogue judges, very bad people, very bad judges. But that's the only way that can be changed, and hopefully we'll win an appeal if it is, but I don't see how anybody can challenge it. I don't see how they can challenge it. And remember, it's about voter integrity. We want to have honest voting in our country, because if you don't have honest voting, you can't have really a nation, if you want to know the truth. Howard, I'll give that to you. Do you have any questions, please?
Yes. Okay, so that was President Trump a little earlier this evening, signing into law a new voter measure, which will enable Department of Homeland Security to make sure everybody who votes is actually an American citizen and eligible to vote. I'm going to start with you, Steve Doran, tonight, just for fun. What do you think of this measure, and how optimistic are you that we'll start getting honest elections here in America again?
Well, I think it's a phenomenal move in the right direction, but I really do not believe that it's going to fix anything straight away. They're going to try to cheat in every possible way they can. The only way that this is going to work is if they start putting people in prison for 10 or 15 years for any type of voter fraud. If there's no consequence, there's really no reason to follow the law.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Brooks Agnew, the way I see it is foreign interference in American elections, which is basically proven at this point and could be presented to a court, constitutes an act of war. When we're in a state of war, the president absolutely has the authority to do things like this and say, this is the way the vote's going to be conducted. I see no problem with that at all. I think Lincoln is an example. In the Civil War, what do you think about the legal challenges, and what do you think is the secret, unmasked aspect of this that we're maybe not really noticing?
Well, I've been talking for the last couple of weeks about something called the Emergency Election Infrastructure Act. And what this is actually a declaration of emergency about the assault, the attack on our election infrastructure, which is part of our national security. Now, this is a baby step toward it. I can probably count that it's going to be challenged in court, but it's a baby step. All you're really trying to do is get the live citizens, and that's an important word, live citizens, to receive a mail-in ballot, sign it, vote on it, and return it in the same envelope that it came in. The issue is there are some states, like Washington State, you can't vote in person. There is no in-person voting. It's all mail-in voting. So I think mail-in voting ballots should be banned altogether. If you don't vote in person, you don't vote.
I agree with that 100%. TV's Mike Wally. An executive order is not a law. Yes, it is, Lee Harris. It is a law for as long as it is in place, and it is a law that's signed by the president that applies to any federal agency, division, or even the U.S. military that is under the purview of the executive branch. It is an executive order from the executive of the corporation, the CEO, and it is the law of the land. The minute that...
But she is right in that it can be undone by the next president.
Well, you know what? That's not going to matter, because if we have free, fair, and honest elections, no Democrat's ever going to get elected to a national office ever.
There you go.
I don't think they've won one race in the last 25 or 30 years, except maybe in Washington. So, TV's Mike Wally, what do you think about this step? Do you think it's an important step to election integrity? I agree with Brooks. It needs to go a lot farther than this. Just ban mail-in voting, period, including absentee balloting. But what do you think? Do you think this is an important step, or do you think it's a bunch of BS? And does it worry you that Donald Trump is a king, not a president?
No, not at all. This should be like basic common sense for everybody. And it's sad that we have to have these conversations about it. So it's ripe for fraud when we have all these ways that they can attack it. There should have, stronger integrity, obviously. We should have real citizens voting. They inflated the numbers. I'm not saying there's any cheating in 2020, but how did they get 81 million votes when like the average election year was like 65 to 70? So clearly something was wrong with that. Nobody should really argue. I don't know what the argument would be against this. We don't really like to have executive orders, but we would assume that all of Congress would be on the same page to protect. Because if we don't have like a regular chain of custody, then we have no democracy. It is a threat to our democracy when you can't find out if these votes are actually valid. So yeah, for people that are overseas on whatever reason, or if they're in the military, there are exceptions, but they abuse that during the COVID lockdown, and that can never happen. And we don't have a pandemic this time either, so they can't play that again. So it's over. There's other ways to cheat, but at least they can cut that one up. That's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, I tend to concur with you, Blake. I think this is a positive step in the right direction, and I do think it ultimately holds up in court. By the way, I wanted to say I did say earlier that a couple weeks ago we skipped last week's show because I was traveling again or whatever my reason was. That we would have a resolution to the Iran war by the end of the month. I appear to have missed that by a few days, but there is some promising reason to think that it is coming. So let's move on to the next issue. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had some interesting things to say, but Glenn Beck made a really, I thought, interesting observation, because NATO is under fire. France, Italy, Spain, and more just blocked our military flights for the Iran war. They don't want us there. Perfect. President Trump, bring our troops and our nukes home from these failing NATO countries now. Soon they'll be Islamic nations anyway. They cannot have our nukes. Let Europe defend itself. Use the savings to root out DC corruption, pay our TSA and DHS, and give every American a huge tax refund. America first means America's safe at home. And that is not the only interesting thing that anybody had to say about NATO recently. Also, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth chimed in as well.
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that'll be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare. A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others. And yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing and overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. He's simply pointing that out, and ultimately it'll be his decision of what that looks like after this is complete.
Now, earlier than that, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, sorry, previews there. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, sorry, I don't have it queued up properly, had this to say about the state of the NATO alliance.
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of that's going to have to be re-examined. All of it's going to have to be re-examined.
Okay, so you saw Marco Rubio, you saw sorry, I'm getting a bunch of messages here. So you've seen Marco Rubio, you've seen
Pete Hegseth.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the president himself has put out some interesting tweets. Start with you, Dr. Brooks Agnew. Is the writing on the wall for NATO? Is this the beginning of the end of the 70-year alliance that we've had with these?
Yeah, I call them the Pan-European Army. They're not NATO anymore. They have conquered 63 sovereign countries. They've assassinated presidents. They have performed coups. They performed financial blackmail, and they have now got 63 countries involved in them. And they're taxing them all. But they are not doing what they were designed to do, which is to protect Europe against the Soviet Union. There's no Soviet Union anymore, so they should have been dissolved a long time ago. But President Trump saying, "Oh, we want to land our fighters or our refuelers or our troop carriers at your air bases," and them saying no, it's time for NATO to be cut off.
Yeah, I agree with that. And okay, so Blake, what do you think about the possibility of leaving the NATO alliance? I think it's long overdue. I don't see why we need them. Let's get rid of them and bring all the troops home. What are we protecting them from anyway at this point?
Yeah, I hear you. It seemed like a couple months ago we were going to get out of NATO or end that arrangement or pull the money. It was a one-sided deal and we were doing all the work. So it seemed like a bad alliance. And now that we've got some conflict in the with Iran, now we're trying to pull them in a little and they don't want to help us out. So I can see why this is just a failed regime right now. So I don't think it's going to work. So I don't know exactly how they're going to do this security. But this is a changing world, and I hope they know what they're doing. But if they're going to get on our back, or if they're not going to join us, I'm not even saying that this is justified or we should pull them in. I think it's usually if we're in defense. So there's, unfortunately, within the structure, within America and Europe, and trying to see who wants to get involved in this conflict, who does not, and whether we're going to, I don't know. I'll stop here because I don't really know where to continue without running myself into circles. But
the thing to remember here is that Obama and Biden spent 8 years building this war, and it's taken Trump 30 days to take it apart.
Yep. Steve Doran, Trail Boss, do you give a flying fuck whether or not we're still in NATO? And you are one of the toughest, bravest men I know because you survived getting shot in the face by me. But do you give a flying fuck whether the U.S. supports NATO any longer?
Not at all. NATO needs to go. The UN needs to go. All of their funding comes from the United States. Most of their weaponry comes from the United States. We need to just pull out 100%. The technology we have today, we don't need them. It's not the 1950s or 60s where we need first response bases in Europe to protect ourselves. We don't need that anymore. They need to go. We need to put the money back into the United States and quit giving it out to all these welfare countries. So they never do anything right by us. Only when they're in trouble do they give us any support whatsoever because they're in trouble and they want our help. We need to just cut it clean. We need to tear down the UN building in New York and turn it into a parking lot or a parking garage and be done with all of it.
Yeah, the president really hit it today on Truth Social. He said all of those countries that can't get fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran. I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. Number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait, and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. President Donald J. Trump. Brooks, isn't he really saying the alliance is over? I mean, isn't that a flat out statement that the alliance is over?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he's trying to tell the world that he is speaking to officials in Iran, although the ones that have control over the media are saying he's not speaking to us. And what we're saying is, yeah, no shit. They're not speaking to you. They're speaking to other people in Iran. So I will want to add this, that wars are started and prosecuted mostly from the air, and President Trump has done, and Pete Hegseth has done a marvelous job for the last 30 days. But wars are won on the ground. And when we land troops there and seize Karg Island and this other island that starts with an M, the Straits of Hormuz are ours, and Iran is broke.
Now, this is really interesting because I was told less than a week ago, before the last show, that when President Trump said he got a nice gift from someone in Iran or to do with the Iranian people and the government, to the effect that I think I'm dealing with the right person. What I was told is that what he received is something called a golden gun box. Now, these boxes are made of gold. They frequently have guns made out of gold inside of them. And Ian Fleming knew something about this when he wrote the James Bond novel, The Man with the Golden Gun. But what they represent, they don't always have golden guns in them. They can have many other things. But what they represent is a tranche of assets, possibly gold, possibly silver, possibly even today cryptos, that have a far greater value than the value of the golden box itself. And these are exchanged between and only between sovereigns. An example of a sovereign might be, I don't know, Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, the Crown Prince of Iran would be considered a sovereign. The king or the queen would be considered a sovereign. The Pope would be considered a sovereign. What I was told is that in that golden gun box was the deed, the rights, the title to Karg Island, which President Trump, you don't believe me, we'll go back and we can do videos if you want, has been talking about seizing Karg Island since the 1980s. I believe that is ultimately the reason for this. The primary reason we'll talk about in a minute, probably because it's actually owned by the British Crown. I was also told on Monday or Tuesday by 107, there's a little more to it than that. And the next day, President Trump came out and said, well, we got 8 or 10 tankers from them. So What's interesting is what has subsequently happened, which is that although some faction in Iran did strike at a tanker, a Kuwaiti tanker, that was not actually trying to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, we did get something really interesting, which is that if you go to a map of the movement, and I'm trying to find it right here, the movements of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, it is back to flowing. There it is. There's a streaming map from today, and the oil is flowing. The spice must flow, Brooks.
That's right. The spice must flow.
It appears to be flowing, and that is an interesting development because I just got a report on my phone, and this is not, my friend says he's verified it, that President Trump will be giving a primetime address to the nation tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern to provide an important update on Iran. And it sounds to me like Iran may have been I don't know, surrendering, giving in, making a deal, making an agreement. That means I'd be a whole day late on my prediction. But Steve, what do you think about this? Is that a positive development? Do you think Trump has run this war really well, regardless of what you think about Karg Island and golden guns and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, my problem is when you go to war, you go to win. And you dang sure don't want to leave that regime in power in any way, shape, or form. You want to give it back to the Iranians. You want to give Iran back to the Iranians. You want to get rid of that evil Islamic regime. You want to put them as far under the dirt as you possibly can.
Yep.
There is no quarter for people like that. There is no making deals with people like that. And if he doesn't intend to destroy that regime 100% and get rid of them so that the honest, hardworking people of Iran can take their country back, then he is not only a fool, he has betrayed the people of that country.
I wholeheartedly concur with that. Why do we not have this? I wholeheartedly concur with that because the war is not finished if the Islamic regime is still in power. I don't care if they agree to no nukes. They've agreed to that before and then gone back to developing nukes. So they have to be gone. And by the way, the country is called Persia. Iran is a British term, which means actually German term, which stands for area.
Well, and on that same note, you know, let's face reality. The UK, France, most of the European countries are falling to the Islamic regimes,
Yes.
and they are no longer our allies. They are our enemies. And the governments there prove it day in and day out that they are our enemy. They are not our allies anymore.
Everybody has an opinion, and sometimes some of us are full of crap, and sometimes aren't, Marianne. So that brings me back to the
perfect, baby.
Well, that brings me back to the Glenn Beck post, which I should have actually run at this point in the show, not earlier, where he said, you know, these countries are turning Islamic, so we need to get our nukes out of Germany and France and Spain and other countries. Brooks, what do you think of that? And do you believe the rumor? I'm going to try to verify it on X right now if I can, about President Trump speaking tomorrow about Iran. What do you think about all
Well, I'm going to be tuned in tomorrow at 9. I'm looking forward to the Artemis 2 launch tomorrow too. But the main thing is we need to keep in mind that the Islamic regime is a bunch of homos. They're afraid of women. They beat women. They berate them. They rape children and little boys and goats. And that's what the Islamic regime is about. And they need to be, they're not compatible with the free world.
Okay, just to share, where are we?
If he's on tomorrow, we need to do a special TBT and comment.
Well, we theoretically could do that. Apparently, it is absolutely going to happen that he's going to give a speech tomorrow about Iran. I don't know why you would do this unless you said you were going to say we have a deal. Blake, if we have a deal, I know you have opposed this war, and I don't blame you necessarily. I've always thought it was about a lot more than what we've been told it's about. It's not about oil. It's not about Israel. It's about the Crown of England and taking the English financial tendrils out of Persia and giving the country back to the Persian people. But your position may end up being correct. We don't know. We won't know until the hindsight of history. So if this is going to happen, are you okay with the Iran war if it ends up with a resolution tomorrow of some kind? And do we also need to remove the Islamic regime, or do you just not want to get involved at all?
I wish we had never gotten involved at all. I don't think we're on plan A. I mean, I like the idea that we're just going to go in, you know, take out Khamenei, and then the people are going to rise up and take over. That was the ideal scenario. And then a lot of things have not gone in a good way. So I think there's got to be some kind of an exit strategy. I would love to have a peaceful resolution if we can actually, you know, find somebody that we can, you know, leadership that everybody can agree on. That's going to be a difficult part because the people that we wanted are dead, and then they keep going down the list. And so I don't know who's going to emerge, that U.S., Israel, NATO, Saudi, who else, everyone's going to agree, yeah, this is good. This is our new Persian empire, and everybody's cool with that. I don't know. I think we've gotten into too much, and I'm worried about boots on the ground. And if we're trying to get the right people, this could drag on for years. And I've just seen so many failures with Afghanistan. I mean, get rid of the Taliban, with the Taliban still running it. How's Syria doing? How's Libya? How's Iraq? Seems like everywhere we're trying to meddle and do regime change and put in better people, it backfires and there's blowback. And unfortunately, with there was with the school that got blown up, it was a mistake that kind of turned people against the United States. We're not looked at as liberators. I was just disappointed to see Trump promoting Mark Levin, like, hey, you got to tune into Mark Levin's show, and then he's ranting and raving about putting boots on the ground. I thought that was a bad idea. I didn't like calling for unconditional surrender or threatening war crimes if Iran didn't comply. So I'm really excited about tomorrow's speech, because I hope we can all everyone can chill out.
Yeah.
And we'll
I mean, a lot of that, though, is Trump's style, Blake. It's bluster. He says this, he says that. It sounds outrageous, but he's not really going to do that. He doesn't intend to do that. I think when you talked about unconditional surrender, that was just setting a very far out line to, because you have to give the other guy a chance to declare victory. I remember when Trump did a big land deal on Paradise Island in the Bahamas with Merv Griffin, and they went back and forth about it, and he let Merv make all of his statements about how he won the deal with Donald Trump. Of course, in the end, and Trump outsmarted him and did win the deal. But I don't agree with you, which is okay, because I do respect you and love you, my buddy. I love you, no homo. Okay,
I just think it's a war crime to machine gun 36,000 protesters.
Well, and I mean, that's a war crime, and that has to be punished. So I think Steve is absolutely right that unless the Islamic regime is punished, all I can say, Blake, is if I had to spend 10 years in a Turkish prison, I would want you to be my roommate. Okay, I would. You mean that much to me, bro. But I do think it's unfinished business if the Islamic regime is allowed to stay in. I think as part of any peace agreement, it has to be agreed that the Shah is going to come back and form a new government that will be a democracy. So I agree with Steve. I think Steve's 100% right about that. I do feel like it's worth it because we've gotten rid of a serious threat. If we actually have a real nuclear deal, we've gotten rid of a serious threat. And then next, Brooks, maybe we should start telling the Israelis, you need to get rid of your nukes too, because after all, if we denuclearize the Middle East, then the United States and Russia can take responsibility for the protection of the various states. What do you think about that idea?
I think it's a great idea. Israel's been an antagonist in a lot of this. And when you look at some of the shenanigans, not just the USS Liberty, but also the attack on October 7th, something was fishy about it. Netanyahu went from being a political cripple on the 6th to the most powerful man in the Middle East on the 8th. Something's wrong with it. I just think the Israelis need to be reined in and settled down.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is really interesting because the Russian foreign minister, Lavrov, had interesting things to say today about we're in the middle of reshaping of the new world order. Right now, this restructuring looks like disruption. The fight for power across the world is fierce. Let's listen to what Lavrov actually said.
We can say that we are in the middle of a reshaping of the world order that will hopefully lead to the formation of a stable and fair multipolar world. But right now, this restructuring looks more like disruption in all spheres, and the fight for power across the world is fierce. And political scientists in Russia and in the world point at a whole number of manifestations that indicate a very challenging history of today's situation. We can say that
Okay, so there's a couple things about that language that bother me. I think the New World Order part is not really great, but he did say the world order. It sounds like either he or the translator corrected it to the world order. But are we not, Brooks, are we not in the middle of what appears to be a complete reshaping of how the world works? Whether you believe me that the Crown of England has been, behind all this crap for 120 years and it's time to take down the Pope and the King and all that stuff, whether you believe that or not, it seems like even in practical terms, everything is changing.
Yeah, well, it's about language too. When we first were introduced to the New World Order by Daddy Bush, we kind of thought it was going to be a restructuring of everything, but that is not what happened. We're not talking about a new world order. We're talking about a very old world order. And what Lavrov is talking about is reshaping that. We're going to take it away from the crown and the oligarchs that have been ruling the world for thousands of years. And we're going to come up with something, as he said, much more stable.
Yeah, Steve, is running all these kings and popes and queens and sovereigns, running them out of power, is that a bad thing for the world or is it a good thing? I mean, you're a warrior. You fought in wars. Do you think it's time to stop that stuff?
Well, I mean, you can name them whatever you want to name them, but once they're replaced with somebody just as bad, just as evil. Nothing changes. It's just a different regime at the top. So, I totally disagree with Brooks on disarming Israel. They have a right to defend their borders. They're the best thing we got going in the Middle East to control these vipers, these Muslims and Muslim terrorists that we have over there. As far as I'm concerned, they can wipe out all of them and it would make me happy. But in keeping with the question that you asked me, nothing's going to get any better. I mean, anybody who thinks that, this new regime's going to come in and everything's going to be wonderful, the same greedy, evil bastards that are now sitting in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else around the world who have not been prosecuted, who have not been arrested for their crimes on Epstein Island and elsewhere, are going to be the same people that are going to take over these positions and continue to run the world. So, if you want to live in dreamland and you want to live in fantasy land and think that, good people are going to take over, go ahead. But the only person you're fooling is yourself, because it's going to remain just as evil and just as bad. And the people that are going to be in charge are going to be just as hideous as they are today.
Yep. I mean, look at the No Kings protest. The real kings and queens is King Schumer and Queen Pelosi and King Dickie Durbin. Those are the real kings. They've been in there for 4 freaking decades. That's a king.
They can't even, a lot of them are in wheelchairs and can't even hardly communicate yet.
Exactly.
They're still there.
Yeah, like Mitch McConnell. Blake, do you agree with me, I guess, that this could be a potential reshaping of the world order? Or do you agree with Steve that it's going to be a case of meet the new boss the same as the old boss when we get somebody new in, like Pahlavi when he comes in and takes over, if he does?
Yeah, it tends to be kind of how history goes. So, new boss, same as the old boss. And, these people, they're entrenched for so long. Some of these are like blue blood families that go back generations. So they're used to being in power. So it's hard to get rid of them. I would disagree, though, maybe on Israel. I would agree there on Brooks. They need to chill. I don't think they were supposed to get nuclear weapons. Didn't they steal that technology from us? I question our greatest ally. We get dragged into these wars. And I'm not just Judy. I'm not criticizing, Israel per se or all the people, but some of these, the Zionists with the neocons and the warmongers. And, I think that they've done a lot of destruction. We wouldn't get into Iraq or Iran if it wasn't for constantly trying to defend our greatest ally. So I don't like Bibi. I think he should be in the ICC. I think there's no reason a war criminal. And he was just saying it. The tremendous amount of power that he grabbed after 10/7 is alarming, and he is dictating the flow of this war. This is all, we could pin this all on Bibi. And why didn't we turn him in when we had the chance? Because that's anti-Semitic and you're not allowed to talk about it. But I think we have to reevaluate this. Now, to our greatest ally, but to the rest of the world, they don't like Bibi or Israel. So they do see them as a bully. And I would like that to, yes, our relationship to change. And it's going to have to anyway, because a lot of the new people, the younger people, do not have the same view as the average Fox News watching boomer who loves Israel and unwavering support.
I'm not wild about either particular country, but if you asked me a month ago before this all started, who would you rather remove from the face of the earth, the Islamic Republic of Iran or the Israelis? I'd have to take Islam. I'd have to take the Iranians, because they're, I think, a lot more dangerous. Maybe I'm being naive, because people. Here's what I think it is.
I've been there. I've fought there.
Just real quick, I want you to go, Steve, but just real quick. See, I think people want to blame all this strife on the Israelis, but it's the crown behind them and the Pope behind them and the czars behind them who are the ones that are dictating this. And that, I think, is who Trump is taking on. And I don't agree with you, Blake, although, again, no homo, I love you. He's conducting this war in the interests of the United States. I don't think he's doing it in the interest of Israel. Steve?
Well, no, I've been there. I've fought there. And when you go to Israel, it's, like going anywhere in the United States or most places in the United States. You don't feel threatened in the least. You don't feel like anybody's going to assault you or harm you in any way, shape, or form. You can walk around freely and do what you want to do. Try that in a Muslim country, even the ones that are considered to be the most gracious toward the United States, like Dubai. Make a mistake in Dubai. Watch what happens to you. So, this false sense that any Islamic government is a friend of the United States is a joke. They will kill you just as quick as anybody else. I'd love to see, if I was a billionaire, I'd be like buying 747s to take all these gay and lesbian people and all these women who support Palestine and take them there and drop them off, because they would never, ever come back. They would be dead.
Here we go.
Of hours.
That's right.
Started. Yeah,
in Dubai, which is considered U.S. friendly, they would be dead and in prison within a matter of hours.
I would never and will never visit or vacation in any Islamic country ever. I am 100% in agreement with you on that part of it.
Well, I've been all through it, and Steve is exactly right. Egypt is that way. I've been to Cairo many, many times. Been all over the Middle East, Qatar. It's all that way. You step out of line, and they are no friend.
I had to rescue a guy in Djibouti because he brought a bottle of wine in that was in his luggage and had a layover, and they found it and they were going to cut his hand off. I had to get him out of the country.
Wow.
For having a bottle of wine that was perfectly legal, and all he had was a layover, and they found it in his baggage because the plane couldn't go through. I mean, that's the kind of crap they pull.
Yeah. It'd be raining liberals from the rooftops. Yeah. All right. So do we, as a consensus, do we kind of agree that the old world order is over or not? Or do we think it's changing? And if we do, I want to speculate about the new world order, the real new world order. Do we agree that the world order is on the brink of change, at least? But Brooks, yes or no?
Yeah, I think it is on the brink of change. I think the real power structure of the old world order that's been around for thousands of years, the ones that put the mullahs in power, the Nazis that changed the name of Persia to Iran, I think that is on the verge of collapsing.
Steve, is the old world order about to end, or are we not at a revolutionary moment like that?
I think there are changes being made, but the changes that are being made are being more electronic, if you will, for lack of a better term. But as far as who runs the show, whoever's in charge is going to be just as evil as the person was before. Okay. And as much as people are into, electronic currency and all that kind of stuff, just like in China, just like in other countries, that's not a good thing to have, because once the caste system goes out, they totally 100% control your life in every way, shape, and form.
Correct.
We need a caste system. We do not need to get rid of that. We need to go as we have from the beginning and have tangible dollars that we can put in our hand and use, throughout the country to make our purchases without the government interference. I mean, and they've been doing it for years. I mean, how many credit card companies, like if you want to go buy a gun, they'll refuse to allow you to make the purchase.
They can.
They'll stop your card. And so you want to buy ammo, same thing. They'll stop the purchase on the card. So if they totally control you electronically and you piss them off and you go to get groceries, they can stop that transaction. You need to pay your rent or your mortgage, they can stop that transaction. I can guarantee you there's 4 guys sitting here that if they went to electronic currency, we would be screwed.
Yep. Well, 3 anyway. I don't know.
By the way, those of you out there watching podcasts, the only podcasts you should be watching are the ones that have been banned by YouTube.
Yes, actually true. Laura has a question. Are central banks considered part of the New World Order and going to be taken out? Well, the bad New World Order as opposed to the new World Order, which will hopefully be better. That's a good question to which I don't have a very good answer. I know central banks are going to be responsible for bringing it in. So the new system, new financial system, assuming it does come in, and it's a good thing. I don't know if they're going to stick around. Every country that doesn't have a Rothschilds or Rockefeller controlled central bank flourishes. So you would hope they would be taken out. Anybody have any thoughts on that question before we?
Well, the nation runs on the top 20 banks. I mean, the top 20 banks are the ones that move money around. What's really hurting Main Street as far as money goes are the illegals that are in this country that are boxing up cash and shipping it back to their home countries. We're talking $60 to $100 billion a year that just disappears from our main streets.
Put a 50% tariff on all of it. Let's just put a 50%.
Well, you can't stop it. I go to the post office every day with my business, and I see illegals there almost every single day mailing cash to Mexico. You can't stop it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have one more issue on the show. I was going to play you a video from the Promethean Action folks. These are great videos.
Oh, yeah.
Because the question I was going to get to is, are you the United States and Russia going to form a new alliance? We're both theoretically Christian nations. We're both Caucasian, although George Patton said the Russians were more Asiatic and therefore not trustworthy, which I thought was hilarious. But we don't have time for that. I would, however, recommend that you do go to their Promethean Action or Promethean Updates YouTube channel and watch some of the videos. It'll give you a better picture, I think, of what's going on here. But I do want to get to this last segment. This was Matt Gaetz, the once and future almost was Attorney General of the United States. He was on the Benny Johnson show today. And by the way, please get out there and tweet Benny Johnson that he needs to have me on his show to talk about aliens, the guy with 1.6 million views on the Y-Files channel, because Matt Gaetz doesn't know the shit about what he's talking about. But let's play this video, and I want to get you guys' impressions of what Matt Gaetz had to say today on the Benny Johnson show.
I think the most important information will be the biologics that are not human that have been discovered. And like even some of the briefings that aren't classified just need to be out in the public. I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication.
Look
An
at
actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
Non-human biologics.
They never give a name. They never give a name.
Mating? What the F is going on? Look, wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing? Can you please unpack that?
I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army. Came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there. And what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group, members of Congress, to all show up at the same time at all of these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to simultaneously show up at like 8 locations at one time. And so that never occurred.
What do you mean non-human biologics? Like this?
Well, that was the testimony of David Grush.
Oh man,
the House Oversight Committee, which I joined, and the testimony was that in crashes of craft that had been recovered by the CIA and through a special program that the CIA had for crash recovery, that it wasn't just the hard materials, it was also biologics, but that they couldn't identify a human source of those biologics.
BS.
Can you say habitual liar?
Yeah.
Good.
Anybody that bases their testimony?
I believe Matt Gaetz is saying what he is telling you the truth.
Yes, he is.
The question is, what about what he heard? Brooks, you seem anxious. I'll go.
Oh, the uniform member of the military came in, uniform and everything. What a dumbass.
Yeah, that was
dumbass.
That was the insanity.
He's so full of shit, and I hardly ever swear on this show, but that guy's so full of shit, he should be dark brown.
Brooks, I need some more I need some more whiskey for my Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl 60 champions decanter after that one. Brooks, what do you think about those revelations? And did you love the look on Betty Johnson's face?
Yeah. Anybody that bases their evidence on Grush or Greer or any of these other guys, you lose all credibility. For one thing, there are no hybrid breeding programs where humans are being forced or aliens are being forced to breed with humans. We can't even breed with horses or pigs or anything else, and they're from this world. We cannot breed with other races. And even if we could, the offspring, which soul would get it? Would it be alien? Would it be human? See, it doesn't make any sense. Makes no sense whatsoever.
All right. Thank you for the super chat, Roland. That was awesome. Thank you. Is the New World Order even the right term to be used? Well, we think the New World Order.
Gaetz was duped. He was duped.
Okay. TV's Blake Wally. Let's have your opinion on that. Do you think Gaetz was duped, or do you think this is real? I've actually, look, I know my aliens, okay? I am the world's foremost expert on aliens, as far as I'm concerned. Some people might argue with me, but I'm right up there. And I have never heard of aliens having sex with humans. Well, I kind of have, but they're always reptilians. It sounded like he was talking. I don't know what the fuck to think. Blake, do you believe a word of what Matt Gaetz said? And if not, why would you think he's out there saying this?
Well, he might have heard it from, testimony from, questionable people, and he's just, repeating that. I don't know how much he believes it. It sounds too far-fetched for me to get involved in. So, I mean, if it was actually like real, and I think he would not be allowed to disclose something like that. But if it's just from some, fringe kooks, maybe he can say it. But I don't know how many people are actually going to be buying stuff like that. That's just that's too much. I can believe that our genetics may have been tampered with way, way, way back, perhaps, but that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about actual running programs in multiple locations. No, I can't believe that at all.
Steve, a lot of aliens are pretty damned ugly. And yes, especially Stephen Greer has zero credibility. I got to tell you a story, you guys. I was at a conference this weekend, the Quantum Summit. And there were some people there, and I talked to a woman after I talked about aliens. I said, I do aliens, but I'm here to talk finance. Let's talk about cryptos. Let's talk about currencies. Let's talk about the future. Anyway, and she comes to me afterward, and she goes, well, what do you think of Dr. Stephen Greer? And I said, well, I think he's compromised. I don't think he's somebody you can trust. I would add David Grush, Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, who is the biggest fucking retard out there. You know, oh, he's an aerospace expert. He's a business. His degree is like in business.
Billy Carson.
He knows no. Oh yeah, Billy Carson. Please don't. You know, but Billy's not really the subject tonight. But all these guys that are being pushed out there, they're all retards. And she goes, "Oh no!" And I go, "Why?" And she goes, "Oh, I just had a friend. I just talked her into giving $5 million to Stephen Greer." And I'm like, "What the fuck? You know what, guys? I'm in the wrong business. I need to go back to aliens and fuck all this currency and financial resets and new stuff." But my question for you, Steve Doran, is a lot of aliens are considered ugly. The Greys are ugly. The reptilians, the reptoids are ugly. You know, most of them are ugly. But there are some aliens, like the tall whites and the Pleiadians, who look kind of hot. And my question to you is, if you were asked to be part of an alien breeding experiment with a Pleiadian, would you say yes?
No, I would not. I mean, first of all, there are no such things as aliens from other planets. Everything that you hear about, know about, they're from here, guaranteed. Have firsthand information on that from my background. Secondly, most people from the U.S. UFO community are so full of crap. It's unbelievably, I mean, you have to have the most gullible people in the world to listen to what they have to say. I had a conversation with a guy who went to your seminar in California over the weekend. And this guy is so gullible. It's like he's asking me questions. I'm like, nope, that's not necessarily true. Nope, that's not necessarily true. Nope. Did you listen to what Mike said? Well, yeah, but, and they want to believe it. The reason that all this crap and these people get $5 million and the reason that they're so popular and famous and whatever is because people want to believe and buy into their bullshit. Nobody ever looks at the facts. They just, you know, I mean, I could actually do a YouTube channel, you know, with my background at Los Alamos and just make crap up all day long. And I would get bazillions of views and people wanting to throw money at me because they would think that I, you know, had some super secret knowledge and, you know, like E.T., you know, went home with E.T. for a while and came back with all this special knowledge. And it's like, it irritates me to no end. The number one, people are so stupid and gullible. And number two, that there are people out there that just, you know, talk out their ass constantly and just keep regurgitating the same crap over and over again, to include some of the people that you appeared with, by the way, who are just hacks.
I don't control who else is invited when I'm running my own shows. Only the best people are going to be invited, but that's going to wait.
What do you mean only the best people are going to be invited? I'm telling you, if it wasn't for you and a couple of people like you, I mean, this is what I was told, that number one, that you and a couple other speakers at the one in California were great. Basically, everybody else sucked. They were just running their mouth for the sake of running their mouth and pretending like they had, you know, information that they didn't have. It was expensive and a waste of time, because what they should have done is it should have been way more scheduled, where they could just come see you as an example and leave.
Yeah.
But it was poorly done. And what that does, I'm not saying it detracts from what you do, but, you know, if I'm paying $350, $400 to go see you speak, and, you know, and I got to set through 18 people who are full of shit, you know, by the time you come on, I'm brain dead.
Done. You're done.
Here anymore.
You're done. Yeah. And you know, I do agree with you 100%, Steve. In my experience, people do not want the truth about aliens. They want the fantasy. They want our space brothers are here to help us in the next step in our evolution. And the other thing you said that may be true, and we will find this out, is that they're not from other planets, although I think several of them are. They actually are from here, and many of them live, you know, inside the earth and stuff like that. If only we had somebody on the show who knew something about the inner earth.
About what?
Do you have anybody like that, Brooks? Do you know anybody?
Yeah, I'm the largest.
Say that again.
The
If
inner
only-
Earth.
If only we had someone on this show who knew anything about the inner Earth, we could talk about it. So, anyway.
I have the largest repository of inner Earth data in the world.
I know you do.
And I can tell you it's highly unlikely that intelligent life lives there. Under the sea, totally possible. Because they got to live somewhere. They're flying in ships over our heads all the time. We see them, and they are as present as they want to be.
Love Laura Eisenhower. Thank you. Sweet girl. Simon Parks had sex with aliens many times. Just ask him. Yeah, that's true. And so, same question to TV's Blake Wally. If this is the alien they want you to have sex with, are you breeding or not?
Yeah, I would do that. I would step up for Earth and humanity if they volunteered me. They said, Blake, you're our guy.
Representing the planet. I'm in it on it with you. All right, guys.
That's not a fair question to ask Blake because of his. He hasn't been in Nashville, but what, about a year?
Well, Blake is turned down.
He's already banned from like.
Blake has turned down at least one program that I know of. I know he's turned one down. Anyway.
So, Steve, you don't believe? So we have like 100 billion stars and 100 billion galaxies.
No,
you don't think there's any?
I know for a fact. I've looked at the records. I know for a fact that's.
You
not
think
true.
you have the only record? All right. Well, see, we're alone in the universe.
You believe, like I
this
said,
whole universe.
Like I said,
you think we're just
you
alone?
can believe whatever you want.
I know. Yeah. So
But I've been there, done that,
right?
seen it. So believe
All right.
whatever you want.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you for a great evening. It was hilarious as usual and informative. This remains the best real news talk show on the internet when it comes to giving you the real truth, the real news, and what's really going on, aliens included. So,
Hey, Blake, Deb is a Palladian. Time for you to go, buddy.
Oh, okay.
Their address.
All right, my Taco Bell is almost here. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. We appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, super chat, tell your friends, retweet us out. Let's get this audience bigger than it was. This audience is a fraction of the audience I get with Jen. I'll be back tomorrow for Real News Live with Mike and Jen, and then I'm planning on Whiskey and Wisdom as well. And we'll see what happens with President Trump's speech tomorrow. Maybe we could do a TMT. I don't know. Let's wait and see what happens on that. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. For TV's Blake Wally, Steve Doran, the Trail Boss, and Dr. Brooks Agnew, the smartest man on the planet. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday.